A few years back, this complex, now housing world's largest single-train refinery out of sub-Saharan Africa, was put through the rigors of construction, dredging, piling, and all the processes of fitting and instrumentation. Its sheer size, comparable to 7 times that of Victoria Island, made it all the more an apprehensive wait to have it come to fruition. And in less than a decade, the complex in many regards is up and running, producing in its wake the much coveted premium motor spirit petrol, as it also is a day of joy for the founder.
I would like to salute the people of Nigeria.
On his gratitude list, he points out 2 major positive shifts the president's Naira for Crude directive has brought to this fair.
I want to personally also thank Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for creating this idea of Naira for crude and also Naira for the product. Doing that, it will give a lot of stability for the Naira, you know, where now you remove 40% of the demand of dollars in the market, and that will actually stabilize the market. But that's not it. As you know, there's quite a lot of what you call round tripping, where people now do documentation and the fuel does not come into Nigeria, and this is a fact. So right now, as we have this refinery working, it will show the true consumption of Nigeria.
He then leads the team to the loading gantry area, where he speaks more about pricing, availability, and quality.
You can put it in your car and begin to run. And it will actually save your engine. It will give your engine the best performance. It will not be the normal one. Our gasoline can be, that is PMS, can be in filling stations in the next 48 hours, depending on NNPC. On PMS, like what I told you, it is an arrangement which was designed and approved by Federal Executive Council, led by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. As soon as it is finalized, which he is pushing, you know, once we finish with NNPC, it can be today, it can be tomorrow, we are ready to roll into the market.
It's another hurdle crossed and a few more before the finish line, which Aliko Dangote says is surmountable, adding that domestic supply is inevitable for economic growth. Olo Phillips, Channels Television News.
Welcome back, and that's what we're kicking off from the conversation around the pump price of fuel, the Dangote refinery, and as someone said off camera, he said Dangote refinery is the rain in the desert. Is that really it? Or is this oasis in the desert? But the conversation here in the studio, we have 2 guests, Mr. Onoha Nachi, who's an infrastructure economist and energy consultant. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And also here is Mr. Jake Pele, Executive Director, TAF Africa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So as I said earlier, I said you would handle the humanity and you look at the numbers. but be that is, let's start off from the human side of all of this. Now, some would say the money is necessary, it's needed, but Sepele, when you heard the news, how did it come out? We're talking about one time says 1,000, then NNPCL says, no, that's not, it's not us. Then, so.
I lost my shock observer. I was taken aback. It also shows the level of insensitivity of those who are behind this price hacking. It just shows how out of touch they are with reality and with the populace. The level of discontent that they have created, and of course, the high level of social isolation because people no longer go out. They can't afford to go out. Not because they don't want to go out, but they can't afford to go out. You know, access to healthcare. A lot of people are not able to pay the high cost of transportation to go and access their health, except those who are on emergency. This morning, my logistic officer told me that it used to cost him 400 naira from Nyanya to AYA. Today, he was even looking for the vehicle. He paid 1,000 naira. You know, so it shows you what is happening to the people. Increase in hunger because there are high prices or cost of food items. You know, people not being able to, you know, spend time with their family because many of them can't afford to get to the point of destination. So what is happening is disheartening. And unfortunately, I thought that when they said subsidy is gone, that subsidy actually left. But it appears that that was, like my friend said, a political statement, that we're still asking the question, where is the dividends of the so-called subsidy? I am a supporter of subsidy removal, but not when it is removed on television, but on paper or within the structure of politics is still there. That is not acceptable. I pray that presidents or African presidents will understand the power that they wield when they make a statement, you know. And so the populists are not finding it palatable at all. The suffering has increased.
I'm going to go to Mr. Nachi, and forgive us for doing this, but we have to be able to bring up this conversation. As much as people are looking at the cost of fuel right now and complaining about it, say it's so much, there are many people who say, listen, if you look at the landing cost and what they were being sold at petrol stations, you would know that it wasn't a realistic cost. And it was just a matter of time before that cost is brought into what you buy at the filling stations. Then there's also the argument that if we go around, and the reason why I'm bringing this up with you is because you're a financial guy, there's the conversation that around the world, even at this amount that we are paying right now, even if we start to buy petrol at 1,000 naira per liter, that it still doesn't measure up to how much people buy petrol around the world. It's still one of the cheapest. Okay. Talk to us about that argument. And you know why? Because when you tell the Nigerian that, they'll tell you, what do you mean? Do you know what I have to go through? You know, so talk to us about this dynamic.
Okay, thank you for having me, but we need to face realities and deal with it. Governance is not a joke. The moment you opt to step in to run government, you must be prepared to it. First and foremost, when the president made that announcement at the inauguration, subsidy is gone, I completely fought that statement. You don't make such statement at inauguration. Because after he made it, going to the office, the data were presented, and the data were completely different from the statement he made. He could not absorb it. But the managers of the president could not handle that communications, how to come out of it. So they have to swallow with pride. You don't govern with pride. You don't do that. When reality faces you, you deal with it. But looking at the price, I would tell the person telling you landing costs, please, can the person give you details of the landing costs so that we begin to, because there are some of those costs that could be removed. I don't know how you pay evaporation cost, because I store it in a storage farms and you assume XY percentage will evaporate and you pay for that cost. There are so many costs attached to it. But if anybody still come back and tell you, oh, what we buy fuel is the least in the world, can the person still tell you what we earn as salary is also the least in the world? Let's compare apple for apple. Don't make this comparison where, what is the minimum wage in United Kingdom? What is the minimum wage in US? What is the minimum wage in Australia? Let's do the comparison holistic. You don't pay me 70,000 naira as minimum wage. And when you convert 70,000 naira, it is less than $50 in today's exchange rate. Who earns less than $50 in the world in a month, 30 days? Split it. It is less than how much? About $1.80 in a day. And you want me to do that comparison. So I would like the comparison to be more realistic. But the real fact of it is the government, the seriousness of the government and the commitment. They don't feel the pulse of the people because this is not the time. If this has happened, because whatever you do today, whatever that just happened, has effect in a lot of economic indices. The inflations will go up. The food prices will go up. Everything will just go up, and it has already started. So when you were getting ready to do this, did you consider, yes, this man we are still dealing with inflation, we're still dealing with food supply issues. The food security is not guaranteed. And now you are contributing to the worst of energy security issues. So how do you handle it?
So what should happen now, in your view? What's a holistic solution?
Okay, first look at it from this way. When you come to governance, your revenue and your expenditure must find a way to balance. We are running a very bloated governance structure. Let's be honest to ourselves. And when a government is running a very bloated expenditure structure, you know what they do? There are only three things left for them to do. 1, they borrow. 2, they print money. 3, they do taxing. The last government before this were only doing 2. They were borrowing and they were printing. Now we have a government who is doing the 3. So you must deal with the expenditure part of it and find a way to increase your revenue. If you don't increase your revenue from crude, you will still be dealing with this though. And I'll tell you, when they took over, the crude production without condensate were about 1.1. Now, we're doing 1.4, that is plus condensate. Now, as of 2015, when the party as APC took over, the crude production were 2.3, 2.4. Hello. If I'm the president, in 6 months, my interest will be, how do I take these crude productions to 2 million, 2.2, 2.3? If you cannot increase that your revenue and you're busy increasing your expenditure, you're always going to run short. It is very clear. And I don't understand why they still don't get it. Because take a typical example. We are short of about 1 million our expected crude production. At $80 of that 1 million, it means we're losing $80 million every day. And if you multiply with 30 days of the month, you're talking about $3.something billion. Even if you do a JV structure where we own 60%, so you're supposed to get that 60%.
No, we actually own 40%.
Some of the JV structures. So if you look at those structures very well, you see what you get. Even if the forward sales they have done, total forward sale is still less than 400,000 barrels per day. So you will absorb the forward sales and you produce more, generate more money, then you can cushion all this. But when your revenue is suffering, and your expenditure, you're busy increasing it. So you're only left with this. You borrow, you print, you tax. And unfortunately for the nation, we got a tax consultant as the president. So all he's thinking, all his team is thinking, tax. So,
but the president is just one man. The president has a team, for instance. He has a team of ministers who are supposed to be looking at the different sides of this whole thing. Mr. Pele can weigh in here. We're supposed to be looking at different sides of different things. For instance, I understand that the Ministry of Solid Minerals just held a workshop for all these, looking at the level of solid minerals this country has. I mean, a video is viral where a man is showing slabs of gold from Zamfara. Nigeria is that blessed. Nigeria is a picture of a Russia of old, blessed with all manner of solid minerals, good soils for agriculture when it's not winter, but yet still poor. So why does it look like the team is not looking into its own side or not playing the left wing and the right wing as they should, so that the goalkeeper can catch the ball and keep it well? Goalkeeper being the president.
Leadership question. Let's come home. John runs Channel. If anything goes wrong with the leadership or with the team, who is responsible? John. Simple. If the president has the power to hire and fire. And I keep saying this idea of trying to condone everybody, appease the political interest, and we leave the person that cannot do the job on the job, you will get poor, if not non-performance. And so I don't blame any other person than the president. He hired the same team, and if the team is not doing well, he has the power to hire. And he said it when he was inaugurating them. If you don't perform, I will send you out. Why is it that we know today that there are non-performing ministers? Some of them, you don't even hear anything about them.
But, Mr. Pele, sorry, let me interrupt you here. You're talking about non-performing ministers, but the ministers are just supervisors, so to speak, because the people who are actually doing the work are the civil servants. Fantastic. They're the ones who sign off on all those contracts and projects and all. The minister, hold on, the minister does not necessarily go to every project to see them, but he gets reports from the directors and the permanent secretary to say this is done, that is done. So would you blame the minister for a failure of a ministry and leave out the team that has to work with him?
Again, I'll come back to the same analogy. If Channel is not doing well, will I blame you? I'll blame John. He runs the entire show. And if something is wrong, and it's not also very correct to say that the ministers don't know what happened.
I didn't say they don't know. I said they don't exactly have to be at every project site.
I agree. But you are the minister. I run an organization. If that organization is not doing well, I have teams. I have a team in Ondo for Ondo election right now. I have a team doing accessibility audit in Lagos. If anything goes wrong, I take responsibility. And I think this is the problem, my brother. When leaders don't take responsibility, not only do you act irresponsibly, you also groom irresponsible set of people.
Okay,
responding to ability. That's what responsibility is.
Mr. Nancy, let me put it this way. So there is a notion, I just scribbled it here. Someone says, you were talking about the inauguration, right? Someone says, when you come into power, at the first term, get experts. And then in your second term, you can bring in the politicians. But in this situation, what do we have?
It was reversed.
No. It's not even second term. Let me tell you.
It was reversed. We brought politicians and we jettisoned experts.
We have seen it before. The previous government, this is what they do. The moment you resume office and you're forming your government structure, you bring experts. You allow the expert to run the government, set the thing in motion. Once it's in autopilot, you're getting ready for the next election after 2 years and a half. You bring politicians that will help you run election. But this time around, it was a Miloko.
Okay.
So,
I want to be able to talk.
Let me just react to what...
Mr. Nachi.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're bringing up this question is because of the dynamics, really, when Tinubu came into office. So he had created this image that he was doing a government of national unity. So everyone was an all-comers affair. Everyone was coming to the villa. And at the time, they made it look as though, I'm not saying I did it, I'm saying it was made to look as though, look, let's unite. Let's bring people together because of the divisions that they had, even in the party themselves. How do we bring everyone together and then, start to build from that? You're saying that was the wrong move for him to make?
That wasn't done. So that's why, first and foremost, I said I beg to differ. When you run a government of national unity, you first define what you want, the professionals you want, the experts you want. And if you want to unite, I'll give you a typical example, the South African last election. What did they do? The power was shared. And okay, you, this party, give us this. You, this party, give us you, this party. What happened in this? It was the same case of Emiloko. And that has affected it. Let me tell you one thing. One of the things that President Bola Tinubu got wrong, first and foremost, you won the election, or whatever argument people put around it. You're the president. You should have not packed all your Lagos boys into the government. These are people that were with you from 1999 to 2007. But after 2007, what have they done? Redundant, inactive. And you just bring them and feed them in offices. They are not with the current realities of fact. I have played a tape of the Minister for Finance, who is in charge of the fiscal policies of the economy. Over 10 times, different speeches. It is empty. He doesn't understand what to be done. He has no capacity. And I'll say without any reservation. So you are the coordinating minister of the economy. So the team, the economic team is in your hand. When you look at all these ministries like this, you have to drive it. When we talk about team, it is you that manage the fiscal policy that would define what solid minerals should do, what agriculture should do, and you entitle with that. You set a timeline, and you measure it. You know, we say what get measured, get done. But if it's not been measured, it becomes just like a fluke.
Mr. Epele, you said it was the reverse.
That
was done this time.
You don't try to bring people together to achieve unity, and you bring people that cannot strategically think and strategically execute. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, okay, but I'm just giving you an analogy. And so you cannot say you're trying to move in the direction of unity with incompetence. When people are incompetent, you're going to even create more disunity because they're going to make very bad decisions that will fuel anger within the people you want to lead. You know, and so like I said, getting politicians to try to rejig a fledgling economy in the first place was wrong. It was a wrong move, you know. And so when experts are there, like my brother said, bring them on board, let them set the template. And once the template, and you need to also be careful because when you do that and you bring wrong people, they can ruin a good thing you have started.
Well, let's take it to Lagos because I'm sure Ayo has a few questions for you. Ayo.
Thank you, Kayla. Well, let me begin with Mr. Nachi. When you, in response to some of the question I think Kayla raised with you about the cost of petrol in Nigeria being lowest, you also compared our income and all of that. But one thing that I've always found rather curious is that we compare the economy and the spending power of the American or any of the countries in the West to that of the Nigerian. The cost of living in Lagos is way higher than the cost of living in Sokoto State, for instance. So if we say that the average that anyone will spend to live a day in Lagos is, say, $2, will we say that that will also suffice for Sokoto State or Bauchi or Borno State? So sometimes I wonder whether we really do need to make those comparisons as opposed to really looking at our realities in this country and focus on it and give attention to it. What's your take on that?
First, we don't exist in isolation, so the comparison must surely come. The world is a global village, and the analysis must be GDP parameters are GDP parameters anywhere in the world. There's no exception to it because you're in Nigeria or you're in Nigeria. That makes it an exception. Your production capacity must be analyzed. When we do per income spending of a nation and try to compute that, we take an average. It's not from a particular spot. Your statistics will give you the data you need. But the fact remains that our wages are far below what it should be. And we also have to face reality that, yes, the fuel pump price that just got increased will change a lot of macroeconomics indices for us, from the interest rate, from inflation, general inflation and food inflations and other costs will just skyrocket. So before the government get into this, what was their thinking? Over 10 years ago, I have been a promoter, an advocate, liberalize the downstream. NNPC stands as a private company and import your food. Let anybody that wants to do that business import and sell. You don't limit it to yourself. Let the market forces determine this. But taking that whole responsibility, you're this, you're that, competitions will drive this cost down. Because if you recall when we started GSM in Nigeria, you know the cost of SIM card. SIM card were sold for 120,000. It came to 90. Competition drove it down to the point it is free. Even the rates that the callers, the network operator charges, they begin to do promotions here and there. Can we, for goodness sake, liberalize this sector? And the petroleum industry the law has also made it possible for that to be done. I don't know why we don't want to implement that law in full capacity. What are we afraid for? What are we running away from?
Beginning of days for that in the light of the current realities with Dangote. Well, staying with you, wouldn't you say that, we sometimes over-centralize the issues in the country? Because the states get a lot of money. In fact, in the light of a question to which I'm coming to Dr. Pele, but still staying with you, Mr. Naji, don't you think we over-centralize the issues many times, such that we tend to give the governors and the states, the commissioners in each state, a slap on the wrist, give them a pass, and we always have only on the federal government? Because the reality we all know is that the people live in the states. And really, there are things that the state governors and the state commissioners themselves can do to at least drive down the cost of living one way or the other, don't you think?
Okay, yes, I agree with you. There are so many things state governors can do to affect the cost of living. But who set a template? We have National Economic Team, and we have the NEC, the National Economic Council, which the federal government presides according to our federal system of governance. Who set a template? Even when we had the so-called windfall from the fuel subsidy partial removal, and this money were being shared to the government, the template was wrong. You don't share such money to them. You could have created it as a special fund for special projects. That Nigerians will begin to know that this is the windfall from the removing this subsidy. Not when you begin to share it to them and you begin to say, okay, what do I do? Manage them, do this, do that. No. But the fact of the matter is, even when you look at the current allocations, check the fact structure. Federal government 5248 shared by 36 states and 774 local governments. Who owns the lion's share? Who has that responsibility? That's why you always see the blame comes to them, the accusation comes to them, the reaction comes to them. When we change that template, let's say federal government get 20%, and the other 80% goes to local government and state, all eyes will move. Even people coming to the federal government will not come. All eyes will move. It's a natural phenomenon. Okay. But when you know that a single body called the federal government takes 52%, and 36 state plus FCT and 774 local government, these with the other 48%, naturally, you get a reactions like this. Okay. But the important part of my discourse is the implication of this hike, of this price change.
We'll come to that in a moment, Mr. Nanchi. We'll come to that in a moment. But it's just some of the issues that you were raised earlier that I'm trying to just get your some other perspectives on. So, Dr. Pele, when in reaction the other time, you asked the question, where is the dividend of the so-called subsidy, and which you said you've always supported? But then it also speaks to part of what Mr. Nachi just mentioned, the fact that the state governors now get more than they got before this so-called, as you said, subsidy removal. And it would seem like no one is asking the state governors questions. No one is asking the commissioners questions as to what they do with the increased allocation they get from the federation account.
It's just the lack of transparent process of accountability. I don't think that the issue is that no one is asking. It's just that the people you're asking are not answering. And that's the most of the state governors. There are some state governors that are doing very well, and like my brother said here, I don't care who said the template. If the template is wrong, it is your responsibility to do what is right. If we're
I do
struggling,
get that argument.
the economy is struggling,
Just a
the
second.
people are suffering.
I do get the argument that the template is warped, and perhaps the RAMFAC is already looking at that. Perhaps this constitution amendment is also going to address a number of other issues. But before then, 1 trillion naira, 1 trillion naira plus shared among federal, shared to or among these federating units is quite a lot. So if the state governments, for instance, are getting such humongous amount of money, increased since this year began, someone should be asking them questions. And if you say they are not answering, they are not responding to people, what does that mean? We cut them some slack, we'll cut them loose and let them go, keep doing what they're doing?
Well, the thing is that more money in the hand of an individual oftentimes don't solve the problem. Rather, it will increase the lifestyle of the person, and that's what we are seeing. You see more SUVs in the governor's convoy, and even the ministers. You know, so the problem is not giving them more money. The problem is, one, the will to do something to better the lot of the people. Number two, decentralization of the resources to reach the people that should have it. Get things done, get infrastructure, maintain the existing ones, reach out to empower the people so that they can fend for themselves. And the less we do that, the more the problem. I think, and I agree with you, there are more, we should be asking more questions and demanding more answers from the state government. We shouldn't also absolutely hold the federal government responsible for everything. The subnational bears a lot of responsibility, which they are not discharging at all. And giving them more money doesn't solve the problem.
All right. Well,
as a matter of fact, it complicates it the more.
Okay.
You know.
But let me come back to Mr.
Thank
Nachi.
God for.
Yeah, my sincere apologies, Dr. Pele. Let me come back to you, Mr. Nachi. So, I have this feeling. I mean, when the president was governor, at some point he tried to intervene in energy supply for his people in Lagos. Even now in Imo State, we are made to understand, I wish I was there, to verify how the people are enjoying some form of energy security in the light of, electricity supply and all of that. This hike in petrol price is definitely biting everyone in the country, no doubt about that. And as you said, yes, it's the responsibility of the federal government to set the agenda. But then there is also the responsibility for the states. Is there anything, Mr. Nachi, as an infrastructure economist, that the states themselves could have done, knowing what is coming, to their people, whom they swore to serve and to protect, so that the bite that they are feeling in the various parts of the country is not as strong as it is now?
Unfortunately, I will tell you capital no to that. There's nothing any state governor can do about it because they didn't create it. The most they could do is to create another form
the state governor, a state governor with all the resources he has no capacity to protect his or her people from any economic hardship?
Because whatever you introduce is going to be like a subsidy, and that may not be sustainable. You must address this thing from the root source of it. You don't just, okay, let me take Sokoto State. They don't have capacity to build a refinery. They don't have capacity there's no oil located in their state. What do you want them to do? Okay. It's clearly obvious there's nothing they can do other than to provide subsidy, which may not be sustainable. It will eat into other things. And the day you remove it, the people will now revolt against you.
So, Mr. Nachi and Mr. Pele, we're going to take a quick break. We'll go into the Business Morning studio, and we'll hear from the business desk what's going on, the numbers, We'll step, you mentioned Sokoto, we'll go to Sokoto and hear a bit from the government there about a matter about contract situations and how government is intervening in the lives of its residents. And then we'll come back to this conversation to continue and tidy up all the sides of it. How can the government at different levels intervene? But that'll be in a moment. Right now, we'll go to the Business Morning studio and get some numbers. We'll be back. Ini, a good time there to talk about all the things happening around the business side and how it's affecting Nigeria. Of course, the president is in China, and 5 memorandum of understanding that would affect the Nigerian economy. And they've upgraded Nigeria's relationship with China to a strategic relationship. That's, well, let's see how that ties into the situation currently in the country. Fuel prices up there, and someone says, of course, you can tell that everything, even the ones that are planted in the Nigerian soil and harvested in the rural communities, will go up in price because fuel affects everything. But we still have our guest here with us, Mr. Jake Ipele, who's the Executive Director of TAF Africa, and Ono Anachi, Infrastructure Economist and Energy Consultant. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we went on that break, we were talking about, more or less, we focused on the leadership situation, how leadership is not very effective and how it's affected everything. But let's look at the numbers now. Mr. Naji, I'll start out with you. I actually scribbled here, I said, let's attempt to do a breakdown of this landing cost. You mentioned it earlier, weighed against the cost of crude and the process of producing PMS that might have led to this decision to up the prices.
Okay. One is because when they try to throw the entire burden of cost on PMS, if you take a barrel of crude, you're not only producing PMS. There is an accumulative and shared cost that goes with it. But if you go by refining cost, the refining margin across the globe, I can tell you that number is between $3 to $5 anywhere you want to refine crude. So the numbers are very clear. Now, as a nation, first and foremost, our national oil company is a failure. The management structure, the people that are managing it are responsible for where we are today. If I'm a lawyer and I have that capacity to sue, I would have charged them for economic sabotage, clearly, because this is what they've done. It's a failure. So if the government wants to move forward, we need a complete change in the management structure of that thing and make it a private company, not a private company where NNPC, Ministry of Finance, and Murphy are the shareholders. Can we list it in the market? And once it's listed, then you now begin to see a different structure of management. If you compare the Nigerian NNPC to all other national oil companies in the world, this is the only company we have in the world that has not made profit in the past 5 years. And you cannot continue that way. If it's your private business that you're running, these people they've been there. And you're running your private business and you're not making profit. Can we ask, do you know what they take home? You're running a company. If it's your own company, will you take that as your monthly salary, monthly allowance, and you're not making profit? So we are looking at failure and sustaining failure. And if we must change it, we must start from that leadership. Even if it means employing foreigners. Advertise the position. It's a private company, supposedly. Advertise the position, not federal government appointment and all that. Clear it. Just take up the management of all.
Hold on. Let me just stop you there. I think sometime last month or there in August, the NNPC Limited announced its audited financial statements declaring a profit of 3.297 trillion naira. But you just said they've not made a profit in the last 5 years.
Oh boy. I hate when they throw lies out. The same people that release, see, you can tell me you made profit of 2.this trillion and you're indebted to about 17 trillion. How do we come? Let's balance your debt with your profit. Are you a profitable company? You're not. I stated it in the last audited account they made. I was in this studio. We analyzed it. And I told you there are hidden costs that they did not report. And these costs are there. When you say you made profit, can you clear your debt? The same people have come after they released this document. 2 weeks after, they're now coming to accept that they have 6 billion trillion. Can we balance that 6 billion trillion with the profit they say you made? Is that a profitable company? I guess you know the answer. Capital no. So, in my own opinion, if the president wants Nigeria to move forward and want to resolve this issue, one, wipe out the, is it 18 or 19 of them running the leadership from the NNPC as a group to all the subsidiaries? We need to take them out. Because, you know, when you stay in a place, you're so comfortable, you have perfected your crime, your criminalities, and you think you can run away with it. No.
I mean, we really can't start to say that they've committed crimes. They have to be convicted of those things.
The crime is obvious. I'm stating it in the national
but
TV.
My question, I want to be able to build on that thing that you just talked about, and I wanted Mr. Ekpele to talk about, because this is not the first time we've heard people call for the sacking of Mr. Melekiari in particular, and people on that board. Is that really the solution? We've sacked people before. It didn't make it better. They just came and learnt the bad behavior and continued.
Yeah, I'll keep sacking until I get the right people. Period. I mean, you don't keep people that are capital failure in a system. Are you telling me that there are no people better than most of them? Everything rises and falls on leadership. If you have not been able to manage NNPC in the first place, this thing that have been released, I'm not a political economist, petroleum economist like my brother, but if we go by what he just said, you are an absolute failure. Failure spelled in capital letters, and you don't keep people that are not good enough in a system expecting that you're going to get a good outcome. It's not possible. Okay. And so you don't try to baby situations like this. You take drastic action that will produce the expected result.
With
I mean. Okay. Let's see the recommendation I have for the government for us to do. Sack everybody, advertise the position, call Pricewaterhouse or Ernst & Young to supervise the employment, and at the same time give performance indication for them. If you don't meet it, you're out.
With Dangote coming on board.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any hope from the figures? Let me focus on, because that's where my worry is my money. So from the figure, is there any way him coming on board will affect the price or availability in Nigeria of PMS?
Most likely. The only way, the first area I will see the effect of Dangote coming up, the forex margin in the transaction will be affected, and that will lead to a reduction. A typical case in it, he's buying crude in Naira, so he's not going to go chase for dollar at the open market, so that is closed. He's also selling the PMS in Naira to us, so that Naira exchange, because if you look at most of the effect on it, it is the exchange rate volatility that comes to play. So there are likelihood, it depends on how great a businessman is, that likelihood may apply. If Dangote choose to be a pure capitalist, we will not see the difference. But if he choose to be a Nigerian, which he is, we'll see the difference that plays in. In my own hope, I expect to see difference. And the most important thing we can do in this country, I tell President Bola Tinubu, this is a national TV. Can we get our total production increased, and can we refine all our total productions in this country? It should be a target that if I sack the new team and I put a new team, with Dangote doing 650, another team, at the end of the day, if I increase my production to 3 million, I have a refining capacity that can do my 3 million refining. So I'm no longer selling any crude to anybody. So it will become a hub for refined product being sold across West Africa and Africa.
Let's stay with you and look at this production. Mr. Pele will come back here to look at the state and how they can play to make things a little easier. So Dangote, for instance, is operating in a free trade zone. And some would tell you that, being that means whatever he's doing is like an international market. He's on the international market. So even bringing it into Nigeria is like even importing, which is why some say it's only NNPC that can go there for now to lift. And I think he was quoted as saying that the costing of his product will be determined by the Federal Executive Council because they are in conversations with the president. Now, having said that, the other part is also the Port Harcourt refinery. They're supposed to have started work this September. Do you think this working together would help to make that difference you're thinking?
Yes, if we're able to put the 4 local refineries we have, I don't want to just narrow it down to Port Harcourt refinery. If we're able to put them into use, Warri refineries and Port Harcourt 1 and 2. If we're able to put them actively, their refining capacity, if I'm not mistaken, is about 450,000 barrels. So once we put this into use, it will up total refining capacity of Nigeria to be about 1 million. So we cannot step forward. But I know Kaduna Refinery is designed on a heavy cracking port, which makes it difficult for it to come on board immediately. Because the crude you need for Kaduna, we have to import it. It's not a Nigerian crude.
Oh, why is that?
Oh, that is the design of that. Don't worry about that.
No, I need to understand. I'm worried. Because they said it was going to work.
It's a heavy crude.
Okay, it's designed. It's heavy crude.
Yes.
It's not Bonny Light.
It's not Bonny Light. It's designed for heavy crude. So
okay.
So we'll get that. So the most important part is if we can get all our refineries functioning, that will take us up to 1 million refining capacity locally. And I will use this opportunity to cut. When I see areas that state can intervene and play a role. Rivers State has capacity to build a refinery as a state. They have lending capacity, they have borrowing capacity. If Rivers State sit down and decide that they want to invest in this, they can form a JVs with different companies and own a refinery. It becomes source of revenue for Rivers State. Delta State has such capacity. Bayelsa has such capacity. So we know states that has the resources about it. Edo State can do a lot of gas processing and all that. So right now, because of the status of the state, we have creative governors. I'm calling on them because it's obvious. They can do the same thing. You're not taking it from your money. The state will only fund the development cost. And once the development cost talk about the land, the designs, this, and then you go to the international market to look for funding. And you will show the way Dangote got funding, that's the way state will get funding. Let federal government guarantee these 4 states. If you design and you're ready to win, the federal government will give you a sovereign guarantee against your lending capacity. These refineries will come to play.
Well, Mr. Pella,
and everybody will fund it.
True, I do agree with you. There are avenues to go about this. But as he said, if we have a thinking government, and for instance, governments are doing certain things. The Cross River State government, a couple of months ago, announced deep sea ports that they are working on. They've been on that project for a while, but the governor talked about that he has received funding for that to happen. They've received funding for a rail line that will connect Calabar all the way to Obudu, that onto Benue. Now, those, as you say, thinking governors. Can these governors think of other ways to ameliorate the pains that the cost of fuel, since subsidy is gone, went live, what do you think they can do? I mean, I think simple, as they say, low-hanging fruits.
Simple thing to do. Find a way to lower the cost of transportation. Find a way, because Cross River, I happen to be an in-law to Cross River and to you, you know, River State, I'm from River State. When my brother was talking, I said, why can't these 3-4 governors come together, put the resources together and float a refinery? Who will stop them? Their own will.
When you say lower the cost of transportation, are you talking about some kind of subsidy?
Yes, yes.
So the state governments create some kind of subsidy on transportation
they can subsidize transportation. When they do that, they have taken care of the inability of the common man, you know, or where cocoa is produced, that he has to you know, plantain and the rest of them can come to the metropolis. You know, lower cost of transportation, ensure that those with agricultural produce can produce and bring it into town so that it will lower the cost of food, you know, and ensure that there is security within the state where you govern, because where there is insecurity, no matter what you do, you will have chaos. So for me, those are the things you need to do. And also make sure that your civil service is optimal. People are going to work and producing their best.
I mean, we kind of moved into the conversation about leadership and President Tinubu's handling of the country. We're seeing comments, people saying, "No, he didn't remove subsidy. He just announced it." did he have an option? Was there something he could have done differently?
Well, again, that's leadership. As a leader, your word carries power, carries weight. You don't say things recklessly. And when you're saying something, you're saying something that you've already done. That's how God speaks. When he speaks, it's already done. So you say something, in other words, there would have been a strategy in the first place that will address the issue of fuel subsidy before it was announced.
Should subsidy come back? Should subsidy come back right now?
If you talk about subsidy, subsidizing petroleum products, capital no. But subsidizing transportation, yes.
Okay.
Because when you subsidize transportation, you can increase your tax base.
Exactly.
And that becomes revenue to the nation.
Sorry, subsidized transportation, increased tax base.
Yes.
Please break it down. Because the transport owners would also be complaining about the cost of vehicle parts, maintenance of vehicles. And then the power side of things, we've not even looked at that side.
Okay, wait. Let me take you. I've said this before in this platform. Today we have various transport companies. The organized transport company and the unorganized transport company. We can bring the organized transport company into a tax base and subsidize it. I take God is Good Motors. They load in different particular places, so you can track the number of passengers they are carrying. If you want to subsidize transportation, you subsidize directly to God is Good. How many passengers, how many buses picks up? Those people that buys your ticket, if their ticket was to be 10,000 naira, if government say they're doing 30% subsidy on transportation, they now pay 7 naira. Then you, the transport company, comes back to the government and get the other 30 naira back. And that is how you subsidize transportation. In United Kingdom, rates are subsidized. In New York, rates are subsidized. So you don't pay the actual amount. You do it directly. Go to the big cities of America, you see all the Greyhound buses. These are organized. And now because you have captured them into a database, you begin to get an enlarged tax base that will begin to play out.
I mean, you talked
about the Calabar project. Let me take you to that. Luckily, I'm proud of that project. You know why? I conceived that project with the governor. My company developed the outline business case that defined the viability of that project that was taken to Afro-Exim Bank and the funding was done. Any state can do it. Gauge a right expert. They will sit down, crack the number. Oh, you just need to show that this project is viable. Once the viability is established.
Speaking of experts, there was something we were talking about during the break, and I wanted to bring it up. The President Tinubu quagmire. That's actually what I wrote it as. The President Tinubu quagmire. I remember that this election, he almost lost this election. He had, and then of course the conversation came up about, oh, he has boys, his boys have always been in government. He brought up a lot of people, and a lot of people believe that it was these men that really made the drive for him to win this election. You talked about how, well, okay, yes, he has his boys, but they've been redundant, you said, for the past 7 years, and then you now bring them into power, and they will not be able to deliver what is crucial to deliver at this point because they are not experts. That dilemma that the president had to deal with, helping out the people who have been there for me all these years, helped me win this election, versus getting the experts that are needed to be able to, get things done in this crucial point in Nigeria's history. Talk to us about that dilemma and what he should have done there. I think I'm gonna start with Mr. Pele.
Yeah, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
My mother gave birth to me, okay? And I run the organization I'm running. I didn't bring my mother. I can't bring my mother to come and run because she doesn't know what to do. So I can't say because my mother gave birth to me, then I would bring her to run.
To be your board chairman.
Exactly. It's simple. It's simple. But what am I doing? When she was alive, I kept her on salary. I was paying her so that she can be comfortable to give me the breathing space to do what I'm doing and do it well because I'm responsible to my board, to the community, that if I'm not doing what I'm expected to do, they'll kick me out. Even though some of us are planning our succession so that we can leave for younger ones to run. That's how to do it, So you cannot, it's not an excuse, Keller, that because the people supported you to win an election, therefore you will put them in the right places where they're ruining. And please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody across board. Okay, there are people that have no business in this government. and the president knows it. And this idea of trying to, cushion the effect of what people will say, and using the wrong people at the right place is not good for him.
So where we are now, Mr. Nachi. What should he do now?
Keller, the right thing to do, first and foremost, the election was won from the north and not from the south. If you check the result of the election from the south, if there was no close link between the three contestants in the north, if one person has led the north, that victory wouldn't have come. So let's not talk about the boys, what they did or what they did not do. But as a president, please, Mr. President, I will advise you, remove all the nepotism you are exhibiting. Remove all the tribalism you are exhibiting. We only have one Nigeria. We only have one country. Get those that can run the thing. Get those that are experts. Get those that have done it before. Remove those people that have been redundant for 16, 18 years doing nothing. They are not in tune with the trend of events. They are not in tune with technology. They are not in tune with economic models. We must move this nation forward. We have no other country. Start from NNPC. Sack everybody on top of it. Advertise it. Get international organization to do the recruitment. It can be anybody from the world. The Scott of England Bank's person is from Canada and is heading the Bank of England. So we can throw it open so that we'll go clean. Okay, and we must be ready to industrialize the nation.
Let's go to Lagos because I think Ayo has a few questions for you. Ayo.
Kayla, well, let me stay with them because I love the thinking of, economists, about this matter. I still go back to what the states can do. And I'm glad that you finally said the other time that, the states have capacity and they have potential to be able to do something for their people. And that's where I would like to stick, if you don't mind me, saying. So if states were to champion energy security for their people, for the people in their states, in what area would you advise that they be looking? We understand that the Rural Electrification Agency of the federal government is all over the place, talking specifically to rural communities. That, in a way, indicts the states that maybe they weren't able to do these things themselves. So if states were to intervene in energy security for their people in their different states, in what area would you advise that they look?
Thank you for your question, Ayo. I will advise every state to look at their area of comparative advantage and then capitalize on it. So far, if you focus on energy security, the new electricity law has given that power to states to develop their market. And as I speak to you, my organizations, we have developed the electricity law for about 3 states and a policy document for 3 states. And we are working with more other states. It's only when you have these laws in place and your policy in place that you begin to think about what you can do. When the man in Delta, in Edo, will be thinking of a gas-fired plant to generate electricity, the man in Sokoto, the man in Borno should be thinking about hydro, wind, and solar to do that. So that alone will help them do what they can do. But when I focus on the comparative advantage they have, I like to bring it down closely. If I take a state like Niger State, which is close to here, Niger State land mass is 10% the population of Nigeria. And that puts you about 96,000 square kilometer land size and above. That state can afford to do farms that are in 20,000 hectares of land of different crops. And they can produce grains just the way even Ukraine is producing during war. They can do that.
It's really interesting
that has the land can do that. Create enormous farm for food production.
It's actually very interesting that you talk about land space. And I'd like to bring this to Dr. Pele. Because as we speak, there's a particular community, I think in Katsina State, they have a wind farm that's supposed to also generate electricity. It's a state initiative from the last time I checked, whether or not the federal government has intervened in it. It's another thing entirely. Now, that's been lying fallow for years. Whether or not it has kicked off again, I guess we'll be waiting to see. But that's one area in which states could have intervened and nothing was done over the years. How do people hold their elected officials in these states to account?
Well, it's simple. There are no reinventing the wheel for the mechanism for holding people accountable. You hold them accountable by what they do, what they say, and to make sure that whatever they say or doing has a positive effect in the life of the people that they are governing. And if they are not doing that, there are processes. The civil society is responsible for holding elected government official accountable. The judiciary is responsible. And until these institutions, these weak institutions that we have today, stand up and rise to occasion, and then place a demand on these people and ask them to account for the position that and the resources that they control. There's no hard and fast rule in holding people accountable.
Okay.
It's just like Mr. John Momo holds all of you accountable.
Indeed. Because we are going to be held accountable, we have to interrupt you. We really need to go. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming in this morning. Mr. Jake Pillay is the Executive Director of TAF Africa. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Onoha Nachi, Infrastructure Economist and Energy Consultant. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It was fantastic, this conversation.